Hi, I'm Caitlin Balagush. I'm a program management specialist with our Master Gardener program for the University of Maryland Extension. Today I have with me Molly Moore, Charles County Master Gardener. The University of Maryland Extension Service is just one part of the university's College of Agriculture and Natural Resources. So we have field faculty and staff that provide outreach, education, and technical assistance to Marylanders across the state. You have a local extension office in each county and Baltimore City. The Master Gardener program is just one of those programs. So it's actually a volunteer program where we train volunteer educators to conduct outreach and education on a variety of gardening topics like native plants and containers. Molly does a great winter sowing workshop. That's a lot of fun. So today we're going to show you a couple ways that you can start a garden at your own home. The first thing you want to think about are, what are your goals for your garden? Do you want to grow your own food? Do you want to attract more pollinators, reduce your lawn? And write those down and use that as a framework for your gardening efforts. So then you want to come out to your property and do a little assessment. So where is your sun coming from? We're in a very shady spot right here. So you can draw out like where your house is and where the trees are. You want to think about how the water is flowing on your property, because all of that will influence your plant choices. So shade or very wet areas aren't necessarily a bad thing. You just want to make sure you're putting the right plant in the right place, which Molly's going to talk to us about.
So we're going to show you a really easy way to start a garden and help wildlife while you're doing it. One of the things that Charles County Master Gardeners really recommend to people is planting natives. Natives help the wildlife, the birds, the pollinators in your area. These plants have grown up over the centuries with our native wildlife, whereas some of the ornamental plants you buy in the big box stores or some of the nurseries are like feeding unnutritious candy to the birds and animals. One thing about natives is there's a native for every spot in your yard. As Caitlin talked about, you want to look at, do you have sun, do you have shade? There's a native plant for every condition. Plus, native plants grow in our native soil. A lot of people think, oh, Maryland clay is terrible. I have to mend it before I can plant anything. And that's just not so with native plants. A lot of our native plants just love the clay soil. So this is a really easy way to garden without breaking your back. In fact, the University of Maryland has really pioneered the concept of no-till gardening and farming, because scientists have discovered that by digging in the dirt, you're disrupting all those really critical microorganisms that live in our soil substructure. So the first thing to do is pick an area. So I've decided that I'm really going to work on reducing the size of my lawn. I know everybody loves lawns, but in truth, lawns are kind of food deserts for birds and wildlife and beneficial pollinators. So, we're not telling you to go out and completely get rid of your lawn, but if you take it bit by bit and maybe convert some of it to native plants, you're going to have a more beautiful yard, plus you're going to be attracting butterflies and birds and other beneficial insects to your garden. The first thing you want to do is take the area where you're going to build your garden and cut the grass or the weeds or whatever it is you're going to be planting over just as close to the ground as you possibly can. And then you're going to lay layers of cardboard, or if you still subscribe to a print newspaper, you can lay 4 or 5 layers of newspaper down. So on the cardboard, you don't want to use any cardboard that has a waxy side or colored inks. That's really damaging, can really damage the soil. The other thing is, if you have cardboard with tape like this, you want to take all the tape off, because that's just not going to disintegrate. And the whole idea of planting the cardboard is after it's been down there a year or so, it's going to start disintegrating, and it actually attracts worms up into your garden. So you're going to lay the cardboard down on the area and then start piling on top of it any kinds of organic matter. You can use compost if you have a compost pile. You can use leaves, pine straw, hay. But if you use hay, be sure that no pesticides or fungicides or anything were sprayed on the field where that hay was harvested. So you're going to put in a layer of all this organic material, and then you're going to pile mulch on top of that. And again, it can be shredded bark mulch, preferably not the dyed kind that you see sold. Or for your mulch, you can use piles of leaves, piles of pine straw. Ideally, you would want to leave this there for about 3 or 4 months before you plant in it. So all of it starts decomposing and starts making this really nice organic garden for you to plant your plants in. But if you're really in a rush, you can indeed go ahead and plant your plants in as soon as you've created your garden.
So containers are a great way to garden if you have a really small space, or you just want really a minimal garden, not a whole lot of weeding to do. You can grow flowers, herbs, and vegetables. You can even mix them in different containers to make it more visually interesting. Just because we were talking about earlier, it's still kind of the same concept of right plant, right place. So these phlox are a shade-loving plant. So I don't want to plant them in the same container as this lavender, which wants full sun. When you're using containers, drainage can be a challenge. So lavender is a Mediterranean plant. It likes really well draining soils. So you want to make sure that your growing medium in the container is really light and not too dense. So you don't want to use like garden soil or topsoil. You want to use a potting mix or a soilless mix. So here we have an example of a self-contained watering system. So using just 2 5-gallon buckets. So you can make a container just out of about anything. So you would want to drill holes in the bottom of the container where you're actually going to plant the tomatoes. Put a little mesh screen in there so that not too much soil is falling out. This will be your water reservoir. So you just stick them inside of each other. And you can drill a hole in this bottom bucket, add a little tubing and a gallon jug. So any excess water and nutrients drains right into this, and you can use that to water back into your tomato plant. And you can grow even things like salad greens. So we have a really great resource on how to build a salad box, which is just a square, shallow frame that's great for things like salad greens, herbs like basil or parsley.
Another great way to garden is raised beds. There's huge advantages. Unlike native plants, which can grow in any of our soils here in Maryland, if you're going to grow veggies and fruits, you really need good, rich soil. And raised beds allows you to put all that good, rich organic matter in a box without having to dig anything. It helps, it's much easier to control weeds. And for people who are both older and younger, you can see it's a lot easier to work in it with the bed raised a little bit. Also, another advantage is you can start growing things a little bit earlier, like this lettuce and spinach. And one of your best friends is called a row cover, and it's just this very light fabric. So if you plant it and you get a cold spell, you just kind of throw this over your raised bed and it won't bother your lettuce or the other things that you've planted. The one thing about raised beds is they dry out a little faster than just planting directly in the soil. So you need to be careful about watering and monitoring the moisture in your beds.
Well, I hope all of the information we've shared with you today will help you and inspire you to start your own garden at home. For more information, we have a plethora of resources on our home and garden information website. That's extension.umd.edu/HGIC. There's lots of topics that you can filter through. There's a search bar. If you scroll down on the main page, we have links to our YouTube page. We have a Maryland Grows blog. We have a really great resource called Ask Extension. It's an online web form where you can submit questions and photos to our team of horticulturalists and get answers on your garden problems within 24 to 48 hours. Charles County Master Gardeners have a Facebook page, so you can follow that for all the latest information on programs and workshops that we're doing here in Charles County.